Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check him out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
A clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
Welcome back to Twisted Tales, folks. My next tale here, I had this whole coal mining episode planned here, but I kind of went off track with that a little bit, so I kind of rewrote it, and here I am. So I hope you guys are all well tonight here, and I really do appreciate you guys tuning into this next tale here. So let's jump into the coal mine disasters and whatnot, I guess. So yeah, I guess we'll do that. We're gonna talk about some mining accidents, some disasters, explosions, some death, all that stuff. So yeah, just chill out here, and I guess I'll tell you a little bit about this story. As we know, the Maritimes has its fair share of like coal mining stories, disasters, everything like that. So I figured that was a good place to start with this here. So now there's a lot of death that surrounds working in coal mines. Coal mines are like dangerous for every worker, to be honest. You deal with different shit every shift. Like there'd be everything from collapsing coal mines, suffocation, gas poisoning, explosions, heavy machinery accidents, just, a few to name anyway. Even if you survived everything that I mentioned above, even like how the air was down there, it wasn't the best for breathing atmospheres or everything, right? Because you would get chronic lung disease such as black lung. Sometimes you'd have to work with like convicts or like inmates, and they would be sent down to the mines. Prison inmates were released legally to coal mine owners so that they could also go down to the mines and help work and whatnot. But more often than not, they would just cause shit. It was rare that the mine owners would actually oversee the mining operations and shit like that. Some would, but not all. I mean, a lot of people were just in it to fucking get money, right? Now, actually, fun little fact from my buddy Toussaint here. The first coal mine in North America was actually owned by Louisburg. So yeah, there's that. He wanted me to add that in. So let's go on about the mining life here. Now, that's always been a dark and dangerous one here, right? You literally entering the depths far underground. Especially in Nova Scotia's case here, the coal mines in that area, they're frequently in like dark, dank, subterranean tunnels. So this stretches kilometers out beneath the Atlantic Ocean. So you just gotta be careful where you dig or you're gonna get flooded out by water, right? Over nearly 3 centuries of mining activity in Nova Scotia, there's been disasters like big, small, and I'm going to name a couple here, folks. Drummond Colliery disaster here. This is up in Westville, Nova Scotia. This is May 13th, 1873. This happened at 11:45 a.m. and it actually killed 60 to 70 people, including men, 6 young kids, and some horses. The explosion was caused by an explosion of gas caused by a derangement of ventilation in the mine. Now, a massive gas explosion had fueled the coal dust and had roared through the mine. Some people made it out, passing others that stayed and tried to battle the blaze. Some collapsed on the way out, and, they were just becoming overpowered by smoke and carbon monoxide. This was the first recorded mine disaster in Nova Scotia. Shortly after, 3 men emerged safely out of the mine, and a rescue effort was put together. They went down to explore the conditions here, look for possible survivors, and they weren't gone just a moment when a second explosion had blew through the pit. This blew debris everywhere, hundreds of feet high into the air, and debris ended up falling all around. This included the body of one of the pump shaft volunteers there. He flew up into the air, fell back down, and that was that. Buildings and flames burned nearby for at least 36 hours before they could put it all out. Water was pumped down into the mine so it could later be sealed. So the next October, one slope was reopened, but the fire was actually still burning down there. It was very cautiously reopened and then recovered the next spring. When they reopened, bodies were still located and they were removed. Now, before all the mining started here, all of this was looked at for safety. Like this whole place had been considered safe before that day of mining actually. Although it had been known to be like a gassy area, blasting was suspended on a previous occasion. Now, it suggests here that safety was compromised for production and safety measures weren't taken. The next explosion, this is at the Ford Pit explosion. So the mine was run by the General Mining Association. They pretty much had a hold on like the whole monopoly of most of Nova Scotia's minerals. This was from 1827 to 1857. They had the most updated pumping systems, all that shit, so they could de-water the whole mine here so they could suck water out of the mine. This was state-of-the-art equipment at the time. Now, this explosion here that we're going to talk about happened on November 12th, 1880. 44 men were killed, and two night firemen, or shot fivers, as they're called. Their names were John Campbell and John Weir. So these two completed their inspection that the mine was all clear of gas. They returned to the surface. They reported that the mine was good to go, clear of gas, and ready for work. The men started heading down for their daily work about 6:35 a.m. when all of a sudden the operator of the fan house on the surface was kind of startled by like a strange noise coming from the fan. And then shortly after there was a huge rush of air. And within seconds the roof of the fan house blew off and bricks collapsed on the west side of the building. The pit had completely exploded, and this occurred on the south side of the Ford pit. So this was so bad that it actually swept across to the other side of the pit, and it actually killed some men and some horses that were within reach. The fan shaft played a secondary role as an escape route. Now it was fitted with a hoisting mechanism. A coal tub was lowered down into the shaft for the survivors to get out. Now, tests were done to the air that was coming out of the shaft. It was tested for gas, carbon monoxide, and although despite some damage to the fan house, the fan actually kept pumping air into the mine with hopes of saving the men trapped underneath. 4.5 hours later after the explosion, mining officials were lowered into the mine. They found men down there totally insensible due to the gas, due to injury. There were men lying flat on their stomach down there to avoid being overcome by carbon monoxide. And the south side was completely blocked off. It was totally impossible to get down there as the doors were blown down from the blast. All the horses that were located in pit number 29 ended up dead, and there was hundreds of miners here that were gathered up top, and just great numbers, right? In hopes of showing some encouragement here that something good would come of this and people would get out. But nothing came from that. A second explosion followed later on in the day here that was so violent that it flung a bunch of materials into the air and then damaged several surface buildings here. And fires raged uncontrollably 4 days later. Now, a decision was made to flood the mine. A new mine, the Allen Shaft, was ready to open up in 1904 here. So, some years later, they gained access to the old workings of the Ford mine here. This was in 1928. So caution was taken, of course, before doing such things, and the remains of 9 men from the 1880 explosion were found in 2 areas here. Now, there were boots, belts, and brass and glass safety lamps that were actually still in good condition. So they found like all their tools and everything, like some of them men still had tools on them that were actually still in good condition. Now, some of the men had been identified by the names that were on their lamps. 33 of those missing men were married men. They had kids, everything else, right? Now, next, we'll talk about the Spring Hill mining disaster. This is back in 1891. Well, there were actually a couple mining disasters that happened here. 1891, one in 1956, and 1958 as well. There was lots of human cost that was paid for challenging the Earth's fucking depths here, right? The first disaster was February 21st, 1891. So this happened when accumulated coal dust had caused a wicked explosion that swept through the number 1 and number 2 collieries here. So this left 125 dead and dozens injured. Now the second explosion was November 1st, 1956. A mine train hauling a load of fine coal dust to the surface had encountered fresh ventilated air down the number 4 shaft. So what happened here was the dust that was blown into the air had caused this kind of mist. So at the same exact time, several rail cars had broken loose from the train, and this began to roll backwards. So it derailed, it hit a power line, and then it caused everything to ignite. So the suspended coal dust and everything resulted in an explosion. So fueled by the additional oxygen, this created a massive blast, and this leveled the bank head of the surface here. A bunch of rescue miners and barefaced miners entered the mine immediately here, and they were able to rescue 88 miners, and another 39 miners were beyond rescue here, and they died in the explosion. So 39 total were killed in the explosion in 1956. And the third last disaster here from Spring Hill Mine, this was 2 years later, on October 23rd, 1958. This happened when an underground seismic event had occurred. So this is where coal is dislodged from a seam or a coal surface, and then this results in an erratic natural force here that causes stress. This can cause the immediate collapse of surrounding bedrock. This will bring down all the wooden support filters that are around the roof here, all the mine tunnels, the chambers, all that shit. Then it kind of has this tremendous internal pressure. So this can run throughout the whole coal seam too. Think of it as resembling a bunch of small earthquakes. This had come off as in 3 distinct shock waves. So obviously the ones up top had run down below to assist everybody, and they had high concentrations of deadly gas that had been released because of all this. And obviously the ones that were up top had ran below just to assist the survivors and what have you, right? Because all that deadly gas and everything wasn't good for everybody still being down there. So they ran down, they checked it out, tried to get what they could, but everything was pretty much blocked off here. So everybody was trapped by debris. So they found the last of the survivors here on November 1st. And after that, all they found was remaining dead bodies. Some of their bodies were so decomposed that when they were brought to the surface, they had to be brought up in airtight aluminum coffins. This became known as the Spring Hill Bump. This made a deep impact on the public because this was the first international story in Canada that was covered by live television. This was all broadcasted up by CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. The other disasters here, there's a West Ray disaster here. This happened in 1992. So the West Ray mine opened up in Plymouth, Pictou County. This is on September 11th, 1991. Almost immediately, workers complained about how shitty the whole mine was, the whole conditions and everything. That was right off the bat. Now, they were also continuously working in really deep coal dust here. And there was a local union official here that made a report about this all. There was a safety report done about this. And he even stated that he felt someone would be killed here in the near future. And 2 months after him saying this, a methane gas explosion had rocked the mine here on May 9th, 1992. They searched the shaft, the tunnels, and everything there. They found 15 deceased miners. And with the underground conditions and all that being so horrible, the entire rescue mission was called off and totally abandoned. So because of that, a monument to the victims now sits in like a small park here up in Plymouth. So this marks the remaining 11 that were left entombed below, caught in the earth's dark grip. With that explosion, 26 were dead. I guess we can talk a little bit about like some deaths surrounding the conditions of the mines and stuff like that. Now, like lots of workers worked insane hours in the mines. Some would go in on a Friday and they wouldn't come out till Sunday, and that's the only time that they would see the light. Now, there's a lot of death that surrounds working in coal mines. Like, coal mines were dangerous. Some of the men that were working in the mines ended up getting the black lung. Now, this is caused by long-term inhalation and deposition of, like, coal in the lungs. This is very common in coal miners. This builds up in the lungs, it leads to inflammation and fibrosis. Even hitting a spot with like a pickaxe could cause total chaos, right? Like you could hit a weak spot, you could cause a roof to fall, have a total cave in or what have you. And there were also some random deaths that I found here from records from 1838 all the way to 1992. So 2 men died from being kicked by a horse, 3 men died from an accidental mining explosion here in an office building. A young boy died while playing in a field here. He fell down a mine shaft. 2 died from being blasted through a wall into an underground aquifer here, and they ended up drowning in the water down there. And 1 person died from improperly thawing out some dynamite. Then there's a couple last things that I wanted to add here. Well, I kind of mentioned how like they had horses and everything down in the mines here, so I wanted to give you guys a little description of that shit. Now, the miners had help from ponies, like small horses, taller ponies. All these horses needed to be down in the mines here to help productivity to get improved. They got ponies in to kind of fill this gap here. The first record of them being used is back in like 1750. So it's a long time ago. Horses were used in the mines after the 1842 Mines Act had abolished the underground employment of boys under 10 and all females. Now, sometimes the tall horses would like rip open the top of their heads there, going across the low ceilings and stuff. So you'd see like blood, little bits of flesh on top of the ceiling here as you're going back and forth. Eventually, all these horses here were used in the United States and later on in Canada here in the mines not long after. Now, the horses would pull carts of coal, other such things to help their workload, right? And soon the underground tunnels and the passageways were a little bit enlarged. This was to allow the horses to haul coal along through all these levels. Most pit ponies were actually pretty small horses here. They got most of them from Sable Island. Now, Sable Island's not far from where this place is at here. Most were shipped from Sable Island down to the mainland. Many, unfortunately, spent all of their lives underground. Some horses were put down, like, due to bacterial infections that were set in from, like, wounds and other bacterial discharge and stuff from their injuries. Any unwanted horses that were unable to work, that were, like, kind of okay, they were offered up to like the local residents and shit. All these pathways that needed to be clear of water for the ponies to go through. Water had to be pumped out of like most of them as they were like building them along and stuff like that. Now some workers didn't really care for the ponies, like they kind of thought that the higher ups were only giving a fuck about the ponies, right? They didn't care about the miners or anything like that. In some cases that was true, because there were shitty conditions and some of the higher ups were only in it for the money, right? Some of the miners here, like, they ended up making like underground stables for these guys all year round too. They were only brought up to the surface here when like the pasture work was getting busy or the mining was slowing down, stuff like that. Some of the miners had loved having the horse or like a pony as a co-worker. Now, some would whistle on the way down to the stall, get the horse excited, and the horse would know that his co-worker's actually coming down to the mine now, right? They get attached to one another. The ponies actually learned themselves how to turn around in tight spaces, respond to verbal commands, and even open up ventilation doors. Despite being working in like total darkness and shit like that, they knew their way around. In a typical 8 to 12-hour day, a pit pony would actually move at least 30 tons of coal. Some of the miners made mention that the ponies actually learned to count. So, like, when the ponies were working here, they pulled the tubs of coal or whatever, right? So, these tubs were on rails. Just a little, like, railway carriages and shit. Now, the ponies learned to count the clicks as each of them was attached to, like, each cart, right? So, they would attach 3 carts, and that was acceptable. But when you would try for 4 carts, the pony wouldn't move at all. So they'd hear the 4th click come off, they'd know they'd have 3 carts now, and they'd continue on. Some of the miners remember that the ponies would give their lives for the miners. Now, sometimes while like walking and stuff like that, all of a sudden a pony would stop walking. The human miner would end up getting upset at the horse because they had a time frame to work on. And the very next moment, the roof ahead of them would completely collapse. This happened on more than one occasion over the years here. Some actually learned to hop up with the miner up onto the conveyor belt here, so they'd catch a ride back to the stables instead of walking around the whole way. Sometimes the ponies would actually go blind from like falling rocks and stuff like that, or sharp objects would hit them in the eye. More so, like a miner remembers here, like even though they worked in pitch black, they could see pretty well. And the black lung also came along to the horses over time too, just like in the miners, right? Because they're still breathing that in. Also, because of like the warm and sweaty conditions, the miners had shaved their coats, their manes, and their tail hairs. Like they totally clipped them off. So this made it easier, like to bathe them, like after like the whole shift here, right? So they could get the coal dust off them, and this would also allow them to cool down in the process. Even like lowering all these horses into the mines, right? Like they had special ways of doing this. They would get them into the mines here, like for the very first time, they were taken down by cage. Larger horses were actually bound in straps and lowered down on a cable. And I say that would definitely be a little bit scary for them, but you had to do what you had to do back in those days, right? As the years progressed here, some of the workers were nice to the horses, some were not. Now, each miner did things to get coal out very fast. Some would get frustrated with the animal. Some horses actually played a big part in the miner's life. One of the miners recalls here at one time, there was when a horse had passed away here, it was hauled back up top there, and the miners gathered around here, and they ended up singing like little hymns to honor and respect their fallen worker. Yeah, and with that, I guess that's all I pretty much got here. Now, this coal mining, like, I really enjoyed doing this episode here, and I actually plan on doing a similar one down the road here. I'm gonna do this by like the haunting aspect of it, from like since all the miners died down there, there's gonna be like energy and shit, right? So I'm gonna do this episode here with my buddy Jason Murphy. So he's from Haunts from the Cape. So we're gonna talk on like the aspect of like ghosts and mining and stuff like that. Because he does paranormal investigating. He actually spent some time up in the Miners Museum here. This is up in Glace Bay. So he brought some equipment up there to help capture the energy and shit like that. So we're gonna see if there's any ghosts and spirits up that way. And if you check his YouTube out, search Haunts from the Cape and Miners Museum, they'll check some stuff out there because he has some videos on the Miners Museum up that way too. Pretty cool. I like his work, what he does. He's really, really nice guy, actually. Well, he has a few stories here, like his time from exploring the mines up there at the Miners Museum and shit. So I was gonna do that and talk about some ghost stuff with him, right? So I think I was gonna do that this episode, but I figured it'd be kind of cool just to do a separate episode on that and we'll bullshit about some stuff on that. So at the end of this episode, I'm going to add the link to his Facebook, his YouTube, and his Spotify. This will be in my episode description here, so you click on that, you'll be brought to his stuff. Give him a follow, like his stuff. He's pretty solid. Also, this episode here got me thinking of my old buddy Darrell Walters. Now, Darrell worked back home there. He locked out and had a good gig back there. He actually worked in the mines for a while there. This was back in where was he working at? Duncan. Yeah, he worked up in Duncan. So yeah, he worked up in the mine up there. This was with Cameron Cole. Yeah, Darrell was a roof bolter there back in Cape Breton there. Now Darrell always talked about like that coal mining was some of the hardest work that he's ever done. Because I remember messaging him here about like when he got the Donkin mine down there and he got down there. He did work at like another mine there prior and stuff, so he knew what he was doing. Darrell mentioned that it was like some of the hardest work that he's ever done, but also it was his favorite job that he ever had. Darrell enjoyed going to work there. He called his co-workers his brothers. And a lot of the miners there were like family, right? Darrell loved that he got to live back in Cape Breton and make a living wage. Because most of us, like, got to move away and everything, right? And most of all, like, he got to see his pride and joy, right? He got to see his son after work every single day. That's something a lot of people don't get. And the mine meant everything to Darrell here. Like, even I talked to his sister a little bit tonight. I talked to Annette for a little bit here. And she told me that he never once felt scared to go underground. He talked very proudly about his work, and he was just really proud to be a miner. And I remember, like, way back when I was at work here, I was up at the shop here one day, and I remember a post that he made there, and Ed actually sent that to me. Now, this is from Darrell in his own words. Now, he had his profile picture up here that says, support coal. Now, this was a post he made saying, he said, if you don't support my profile picture, my livelihood, and everything the Donkin Mine and Cameron Cole stands for, you can just go ahead and delete me off Facebook right now. Please, people, don't be like the other sheep that just believe everything you see on the news and social media. I assure you that this mine is safe, and the company's number one priority above production and profits is employee safety. They treat us extremely well. There's not one thing in this world that would stop me from going down into the mine right this second. I wouldn't think twice about it. So please don't let all this negativity and misinformation about the mine chase one of the most promising and fortunate things that came out this way in years and years. He said it gives families a chance to be in bed with their families every night, rather than the odd phone call while up in camp with shitty reception. He says, I know it may be hard for some of us to see, but the Donkin Mine is a complete blessing, one that I have been waiting for a very long time. And it's what this community needs and could use a lot more job openings and opportunities. And my buddy Darrell, unfortunately, passed away in the mine here. It had nothing to do with anything mine related. It was just some health stuff, I guess. And yeah, he ended up having some health issues while at work here and while he was underground, and but there wasn't anything that anybody could have done to help him. And yeah, like I went to school with Darrell. I actually we lived on the same street for a few years. We didn't always get along, but like we always chatted here and there at the odd time and shit. I do miss him like a lot actually. And this episode actually got me thinking of him because I remember talking to him a little bit about the mines here on Facebook and shit like that, and he was wicked just fucking really happy about everything that he was doing too. Yeah, I was just stuck at work there one night and we got talking about the mines there for a little bit. His family always makes sure that his son Mason never forgets his dad. They always show him pictures here or like of him and Darrell together all the time. And I'm really happy that this got me thinking about Darrell. I mentioned here that we didn't always get along. There was a time here after school one day when we were getting off the bus and somebody threw a fucking rock and ended up smacking his sister right in the back of the head here. Obviously, I got the fucking blame for it. Darrell didn't like it. Then I ended up getting punched in the face and we got fucking argued and everything. But he didn't know at the time that I didn't throw that. He actually found out years later. So we ended up drinking here one night. But yeah, no, he gave me a beer, something like that. So he ended up apologizing anyway. It wasn't a big thing. It just sucked at the time kind of thing, right? But yeah, that was just one little story here that I kind of got thinking in my head about, so why not share that, right? With that, folks, I just want to say thank you for joining the show here tonight. I will have some other stuff up here soon. Like always, I always got something fucking going on. And yeah, thank you very much for tuning in to Twisted Tales, folks, and hope you guys have a lovely night. And one last thing here, right quick here, folks. There's one other thing that I wanted to add into here. Now, Annette had messaged me here, and since I was doing this podcast on coal mining there, some of Darrell's miner friends wanted to just say something here about Darrell. And it goes, Darrell loved it at Donkin Mine. We were all like brothers. So many guys are all working the same goal. We all had the same feeling about the mine, and we all felt at the end of the day, what we did mattered. Our kids think we powered the world, and it's a job to be proud of. Darrell sure was proud of what he did. He loved every minute of it. Darrell would give up his free time all the time just to work extra weekends and stuff like that. And he couldn't get enough of the place here. So yeah, no, that's a little bit about Darrell. So again, thanks for tuning back into Twisted Tales, folks. I hope you liked that little part about my friend here, and hope you guys enjoyed the episode.
Twisted Tales.